Hey guys, Alex Kazora as always here for SteelersDepot.com, doing our weekly talk to the tape video, and hopefully you guys are having a good week. I'm having a good week after the Steelers on their 4-game win streak. Things are always better when the Steelers get the W. But what I wanted to talk about today is the blend between Mike Tomlin and Keith Butler, and they obviously come from generally different backgrounds, though there are some crossovers I think people need to realize. But we know Keith Butler as a LeBeau disciple, as a 3-4 guy, played in it with Seattle in his NFL days, and has been with LeBeau almost his entire Steelers career. And so there's that connection. And then we know Tomlin as the Dungy disciple, which goes back to Bud Carson of the 70s Steelers. There's a funny Steelers connection there, but we know Tomlin as the 4-3 cover 2 guy. So I want to kind of talk about how the Steelers, especially more recently, but really throughout the entire year, I would say, have kind of incorporated both of those kind of, what you want to say, thumbprints or whatever the term is, kind of staples and marks on their defense. So I want to go through that today, and hopefully the audio is okay. I think it is. It's been pretty good lately. I'm going to try not to talk too super loud today though, because I think the whenever I start kind of hitting the highs, it starts over modding a little bit. So I'm going to try to have a kind of consistent voice. So sorry if that sounds a little boring, but I don't want to get too overemphasizing on a word and then the audio kind of pops and overmods. So this will be Steelers Depot NPR edition. But I think some really good stuff to look at though. So let's get into it. And these are all concepts we've talked about before, and even have written about, as recently as a couple of days ago. But I think it's better to see whenever we can talk about it together and kind of really go through it than rather me just tweeting about it without accompanying photo or video or GIF or me writing about it even with an article sometimes. So this can be a little more helpful. So we're gonna go with a Tomlin. And again, I think there's a little crossover with Keith Butler, and I wrote about this I think way back in the summer 2015, right before camp started. And I might post a link to that, kind of the Keith Butler connection to the Dungy concepts as well. But I think when we see this stuff, we're going to associate it more with Tomlin than we are Keith Butler. But this is, I've called it a bunch of different things, just trying to find a good term for it. The faux 4-3, or the shift, the overshift, or whatever you want to call it. But this is basically, in a large sense, the Steelers of the '70s stunt 4-3, where you're going to get the nose tackle cocked, and you get this over front as well. So this is a Steelers 3-4 against 21 personnel. There's the fullback Jerome Felton and LaShawn McCoy in the backfield. And the Steelers have been doing this more frequently this year compared to last year, and as the last month or 6 weeks or so compared to the start of the year. And traditionally, what I thought they would do, they would have this stunt 4-3 against very tight end heavy teams. And the Bills are more conservative and conventional than others. But this is they're not like a San Francisco where they have a ton of tight end sets. They're not super deep at tight end, but they are more traditional and conservative. So maybe that's why we see it more against the Bills. We saw it a good bit this past Sunday, but there's the fun to it. Lined up in that traditional 5 tech spot, so nothing crazy there. But what they do is they shift LT Walton, who would usually play the right end and play either the 4 head up or outside shade of the tackle, the 5 tech, and they shift him over, basically being that 3 tech in the situation. And then they have McCullers be the nose, and they both kind of cock Walton a little bit, and they have McCullers cocked as well. And that's what Joe Green would do back in the '70s. Now, of course, McCullers is no Joe Green, which is the same principle, just trying to be able to turn and split that A gap between center and guard to maybe get some penetration. And whenever you're running this with Javon Hargrave, it's of course a lot more successful. And they vary this up a little bit too. They'll oftentimes have a defensive end, to it, or when it was Cam Hayward, be here, and they'll move the nose tackle to the 3 tech. So they have a couple different variations of it as well. This week they primarily kept the nose tackle in his 1 tech spot, and they would move the end, to that 3 tech spot. So they have a couple different looks at it. Then you get this 4-3 look where to the shift side, to the over front, they move the outside linebacker to the shift side off ball, because you already have your 5 tech here. you already have your defender. So they decided to kick the outside linebacker off ball. So I don't have a whole lot of insight on the actual play itself. It's a loss of one here. It's just a nice job with I think it's a trap block here, a pulling guard on the backside. Let's take a look. I think it's incognito pulling. Incognito is going to pull. It just opens up the backside hole. That's the risk you take on those gap schemes. Is they're going to open up lanes, and when you have a guy like Shazier, and really any linebacker probably gets through there, he's able to chase it from the backside and disrupt that, and kind of blow things up. Walton gets off the block and makes a tackle for a 1 yard loss. So that's probably you could associate that with a Dungy Tomlin kind of look. The next thing I want to look at is actually the very next play. So it's kind of fun to watch these go back to back. It's going to be one of the many sacks on the day for Pittsburgh, and this is now a Keith Butler kind of look, and this becomes a fire zone where you're going to get, typically that 5-man rush. So they might have dropped somebody here. Let's make sure this is a 5-man rush because they had some wrinkles into this as well. Yeah, this becomes a 5-man rush. So what they do is, which I think they've kind of been having the nose tackles be a little bit more passive. You see McCullers running out the last second to the back. They've kind of changed it up, and they've been dropping. I saw this in camp. They've been dropping the nose tackle a lot more than they had been on some of this stuff. I think just to protect on the back for if that blitz gets home. They're trying to get ahead of the quarterback throwing hot or checking it down to the back. But bottom line is trying to find a good view of this. This is what Keith Butler will call his storm fire zone with a strong safety coming off the edge here. They're going to drop the away side outside linebacker, and everybody else slants down one gap. So you're going to get slant here. Walton becomes contained, slanting down a gap. Though again, McCullers does end up going out to the flat, and everybody just coming down a gap. It draws eyes that way. It does give yourself rush lane integrity and balance, and then you have Davis coming in free off the side. And so you get some nice interior pressure from Dupree into it. And as Taylor tries to escape to his right, he runs right into Sean Davis. So you get that slant inside. Nice job by Dupree into it. And then it's right into Sean Davis we go. Let's take one look at the coverage as well. And what you get here is trap coverage on most of these fire zones, depending on the set. And I will have to kind of read up a little bit more and see exactly versus what sets they'll get this, because they'll play fire zones different way. Sometimes in this fire zone, you'll get your traditional deep third, which is again a traditional fire zone where you have one third, and the deep middle here. But depending on the set, 2x2, 3x1, exactly who's lined up where, there's a lot of variations with it. They'll play different kinds of coverages with it. And the other coverage that you can get is the corner here reading 2-1, and if 2 goes out, he's going to sit on this, and then the inside linebacker ends up taking 1. He's not going to carry to the flat. He's going to become basically this vertical hook defender with safety up over the top. So Cockrell, it's not cover 3 behind. It's a fire zone, but it's not cover 3. Cock was going to read number 2. As soon as number 2 goes out, he's going to reroute 1 and then start to drive on that. And Timmons is going to start to work to 1 with help over the top. And down here we have man coverage, kind of a meg coverage, inside man, go man coverage wherever he goes concept. It's a little hard to see. We'll get another example of this shortly. But I'll let this thing run through. It's not cover 3 though. It's a trap coverage basically, where they're trapping up top where the cornerback Ross Cockrell is going to be reading 2-1. If 2 goes out, he's going to come down on it. The inside linebacker is going to take number 1, and then to rob of any in-breaking routes, and then you have the safety up over the top for anything vertical. If 1 and 2 go vertical, then typically the corner is going to go vertical as well. And that's a pretty clear way of seeing some of these fire zones, is that motion and the carry that Timmons has there. So I'll play this thing one more time, and then we'll get to the last 2 plays that I want to look at. And obviously get the sack here to really put the Bills in a tough spot. So we're going to go to another fire zone. Here in the third quarter. And this ends up being what Keith Butler would probably call his thunder fire zone. This is what LeBeau called it, his thunder fire zone, where you can have both DBs come, multiple defensive backs come, instead of just the one. So you're getting the corner and the safety coming down. It's a little late, it's a little long developing. So it takes a little longer for the rush to get there because they're coming from the field, not from the boundary in this 2x2 set. So let's look at it from the end zone angle. And this is LeBeau and Butler's Thunder fire zone. And same principles. Away side, outside linebacker is going to drop into coverage in the curl flat, contain down. Everybody shoots down a gap. Then you can get, there's one, that's Sean Davis. And there's Ross Cockrell coming in. It's picked up actually pretty well by the Bills. Got to give him credit there. But again, like I said, they're being a little more passive with a nose tackle or whoever's playing the second defensive lineman in. If the running back goes out, he's probably going to take the running back. If not, he's going to kind of sit there and read the quarterback. And two, it is keeping contained as well, so it serves a dual purpose, especially when you're facing a guy like Tyrod Taylor. But they've done this kind of thing against any type of quarterback, mobile, immobile, young, experienced, whatever. He just reads the eyes and bats the pass down and nearly picked off the center. Ends up knocking it down. So I'll run this thing full one more time. Then we'll go to the aerial view to look at the coverage again. And again, I think in a lot of 2x2 sets, they'll run this trap coverage, and a lot of 3x1, they'll run their conventional cover three. I'm not 100% sure on that. It's a lot of variations. Motion can change things. There's a lot of checks built in. But again, this is not traditional cover three. This is trap coverage, where the corner again is reading 2-1. And if two goes out, the corner's going to come down and try to trap it. And hopefully the quarterback thinks it is cover three, and he thinks number two is open, and it's going to be available. But that's where the trap coverage comes in. We've talked about this a million times, but the best example of this coverage I can give you is Ross Cockrell's interception against the Ravens last year. The big return that he had, the 50, 60 some yard return. I think in the first matchup against Baltimore, the infamous Josh Scobie game, that was trap coverage. This was the play. That coverage, I think the blitz scheme was different. It was that storm fire zone, but the coverage is the same. And I can't tell who that is. It might be William Gay because Cockrell comes, so I think he replaces him. It's harder to tell in the snow. Or it might be the safety. I didn't get a good feel for who the actual coverage was. I think that's... No, it's got to be William Gay because Davis comes out. Sorry, I should have researched this better beforehand. That's why you got to do your homework, kids. But anyway, let's actually talk about the play. I just wanted to get the name right because I hate just saying, a position and not be 100% clear on it. But again, reading 2-1. Two's going to go out. So at first it doesn't look like. First it looks like they're both going to go vertical. Once two goes out, Gay's going to see it. He's going to try to trap this and start to roll down on it. And then you see Timmons start to try to take number one. And that's a tough spot for Timmons. You can't match everything perfectly, but that's how the coverage works, like it or not. And anytime that you see coverage, Timmons kind of take that coverage with that angle to number one, you can definitely tell it's one of those fire zones. You could black out every other part of this screen, and as long as I see Timmons with the way that he's acting in relation to number one, I could tell you almost exactly what the blitz scheme is going to be, what the coverage is going to be, and kind of what happened on the play. And they ran this several times in this game as well. And then again, down to the bottom, I think you're going to get man coverage as well with Artie Burns playing that man coverage inside man technique. Again, if number one ducks inside, they're going to probably change things up a little bit. And you see number one come in on that cross who there Sammy Watkins does. So there are some variations to it. And again, it's a lot of it's dependent on what the personnel is and if it's 2x2, 3x1, things like that. But essentially, you're going to get man coverage. There's no safety help here. So if this guy goes vertical, Burns has to take him. So you get the incompletion there. All right, last one. And we're going to go back to some Tomlin kind of staples. And we've already drawn this play up. I did it on Monday right after the game. We didn't have... we did have end zone view for this. The CBS did show, but now we'll get the coach's tape of it. This is just cover two, your traditional, normal cover two. Ran this a ton against the Bills. I'll play it through for you guys one time. And this, of course, as you can probably tell, is the Artie Burns interception, but just cover two. It's a 2x2 set. Again, you can see cover two by the way the corners are coming up, playing the flat. The mic turn by Timmons here, carrying number two, that seam defender. two deep shell, all classic hallmarks of Bud Carson's cover 2, which was passed on to Dungy, then passed on to Tomlin, and of course Tomlin here in Pittsburgh now. So the thing with Burns is he's going to check. He's the flat defender, but if there's no one flat, you're going to sink on number 1 and squeeze that throw. You're looking for anything flat. If number 2 goes out, he's going to take number 2 and pass it off to number 1. Pass number 1 off to the safety, I should say. But he's checking once he can tell that number 2 is vertical as well. He's going to now carry that. He's got to help a safety out too, because if both go vertical and he stays flat, now you're putting a lot of stress on the safety, putting a lot of stress on your seam player. So now you're trying to squeeze that throw to number 1. Because typically the weakness in cover 2 is this hole shot right here. If the corner sits, you do have a lot of space and a lot of ground to cover for the safety. If that ball's well thrown and thrown quickly enough, it's typically going to be completed. So Burns does a great job being able to realize that there's no threat in the flat. So let's sink, squeeze that throw, get vision to the football, and make a play. I'll check the end zone view here. I don't think there's a whole lot to be able to gain from it. But again, the mic turn from Timmons here. Burns sinking. And it's a bad decision. And as many have pointed out, Sean Davis may very well have picked that off had already Burns not been there. And so you get an interception, which was a huge play in that game. It was the first play off a Steelers turnover. And so they get that right back to throw the momentum in the field position and all those advantages back in the Steelers' favor was obviously critical. So we'll look at it one more time here. Just straight up cover 2. Nothing fancy, exotic about it. None of those fire zones we were talking about earlier. So there you go. The Steelers defense definitely has evolved. It's got some hallmarks of the old cover 3. Their fire zones that they'll run, and of course Keith Bell's been running them a lot more lately, a lot more confidence and aggression in that. But some of the new as well, the stunt 4-3, the cover 2. A little bit more man coverage, a little bit more press. We didn't really talk about that too much today, but we've seen that element as well. So I think it's really interesting. The Steelers are kind of in a unique place where they have a kind of a dual identity, mixing kind of old and new, and Tomlin and Butler. And I think it's worked well though. There's a lot to deal with when you're playing the Steelers defense. They're going to give you kind of every single look. That can be tough to game plan for, and obviously they're just playing well as a unit, and they're going out there and executing. And that's you put that together where they have a good scheme, a variety in your scheme, and guys that are making plays. It's tough to beat. That's a big reason why this defense has improved the way it has, and has to play at this level the rest of the way if they want to get to the Super Bowl. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate the time. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free to ask on this YouTube page if you're watching on YouTube, or on the Facebook page if you are watching on Facebook. And be sure to subscribe to our Facebook page, Steelers Depot. If you want to be the first to see these videos, we post these to Facebook typically before we put them up on Steelers Depot. For example, it's about almost 9 o'clock here Eastern Coast time on Wednesday, so this video will go up probably about an hour or so once it's done processing and all that fun stuff on our Facebook page, but it won't get posted to Steelers Depot until the morning. So you can see this a lot earlier on Facebook if you like our page, and then if you do on Steelers Depot. But if you're watching this on Depot or Facebook or wherever, you have any questions or comments about it, I would love to hear your guys' feedback, and happy to address any questions about the overall scheme or anything I talked about in this video. Anything I wasn't particularly clear about, which certainly does happen, can happen, will happen, all that stuff. Any issues with the video, any issues with the audio, any kind of technical problem, let me know if something isn't sounding right or looking right on your end. Definitely want to make these videos as kind of high quality as possible with the current tools that I have. But anyway, that's enough about me and my rambling. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Be sure to stick with Steelers Depot the rest of the week as we get you ready for the Bengals game. And we'll talk to you soon.